Upper Missouri River, spring of 1848. While neighboring Mandan families erected standard log cabins in 2 weeks before winter, lodge builder Red Cottonwood was still gathering materials in his 12th week, constructing an earth lodge with walls banked 3 feet thick in soil and sod. His fellow builders called it wasteful labor. The village elders shook their heads. Why use twice the timber and 10 times the earth when log cabins had sheltered their people for generations? Then the unprecedented winter of 1849 arrived. Temperatures plunged to 30 below zero with relentless northwest winds. The most brutal cold in living memory that would test every dwelling in the village. Standard log cabins recorded interior temperatures dropping to 18 degrees despite roaring hearth fires. Families burned through their entire winter fuel supply by February, while children suffered frostbite from floor drafts. But Red Cottonwood's earth lodge maintained steady interior temperatures of 62 degrees using half the firewood, sheltering multiple families through the killing cold while others faced hypothermia. What did this Mandan builder understand about thermal mass and wind protection that accepted construction wisdom had completely missed? The Heart River curved through present-day North Dakota like a frozen serpent that spring of 1848, its banks littered with cottonwood logs from the winter ice floods. Red Cottonwood walked the bluff at dawn, measuring frost heave patterns in the village's existing log cabins with his fingers, noting how the northwest wind had carved ice channels under the eaves and through the gaps between logs. At 45, he had spent 31 winters watching families huddle around failing hearth fires, burning through fuel supplies faster each year as the region's winters grew more severe. His father, Big Willow, now 70 and bent from decades of lodge construction, had taught him the traditional methods when he was 14. Standard cabins measured 14 by 20 feet, built from stacked cottonwood logs 8 inches thick, with grass thatch roofs 3 inches deep and minimal insulation. These structures had served the Mandan people adequately during moderate winters, but Red Cottonwood had documented 3 consecutive years of fuel shortages and documented interior temperatures dropping below freezing despite constant fires. The memory of January 1815 haunted his calculations. Night temperatures had plunged to 20 below zero with unrelenting winds, and he had watched several standard cabins lose their husk insulation to ice formation. Families had burned 60 cord feet of wood per month just to maintain barely livable conditions inside, exhausting their supplies before spring. 2 elders had died from exposure in their own homes. Red Cottonwood's solution emerged from careful observation of natural shelters and cross-tribal knowledge. During a trading expedition at age 18, he had studied Pawnee earth lodges in present-day Nebraska, noting how their sod-covered structures maintained stable temperatures through severe weather. More recently, he had consulted with Willow Matt, a 60-year-old Hidatsa elder who had experimented with thicker grass layers and suggested banking earth against windblast in rough but practical terms. His design departed radically from village tradition. Instead of a rectangular cabin, he planned a circular pit excavation 8 feet deep and 40 feet in diameter, more than double the floor space of standard dwellings. 4 central forked cottonwood posts would rise 14 feet from the pit floor, surrounded by 28 uprights approximately 10 feet high, arranged in a perfect circle. 100 rafter poles, each 20 feet long, would radiate from these supports to a central smoke hole 3 feet in diameter. The revolutionary element lay in the covering. Above the standard grass thatch layer 4 inches thick, Red Cottonwood intended to place 28 inches of compacted sod and earth on the roof, with 30 inches of the same material banked against the outer walls. This thermal mass would require hauling over 200 cubic feet of sod chunks and soil, representing 12 weeks of intensive labor from May 1st through July 24th. When Red Cottonwood announced his intentions at the spring council, the response was immediate and dismissive. Old Chief Running Spear, the 78-year-old ceremonial leader who had overseen construction of more than 40 standard dwellings, spoke first with the authority of decades. His weathered face showed skepticism as he addressed the younger man before the assembled builders. Red Cottonwood, you pile earth like a burial mound when a log cabin under proper eaves will suffice. You will rot your timber, block your smoke hole, and waste labor that could build 3 standard dwellings, Running Spear declared. His own 16 by 18-foot cabin had sheltered his family through previous winters using traditional methods: single-wall stacked logs, buffalo robes for insulation, and a 6-inch sod bank against only the rear wall. Builder Brother Manypoles, the 50-year-old master craftsman responsible for constructing 15 cabins in recent years, added his professional judgment with equal certainty. You waste timber and sod when 20 logs will serve. Your roof bank will rot the cottonwood poles, and the smoke hole will freeze over in the first storm. All this labor for perhaps a few degrees of additional warmth that proper fire tending provides anyway. The village gossip network amplified these criticisms. Younger hunters muttered that Red Cottonwood was abandoning proven Mandan methods for Pawnee innovations, questioning his loyalty to tribal tradition. Women responsible for fuel wood gathering wondered aloud whether his massive structure would require even more heating than standard cabins, defeating any theoretical advantages through sheer volume. Red Cottonwood absorbed these criticisms without argument, understanding that only winter's test would validate or destroy his theory. He had calculated the thermal dynamics carefully, observing how beaver lodges incorporated mud and vegetation for insulation, how muskrat dens maintained stable temperatures below ground level, and how earth banking eliminated the convective heat loss that plagued log construction. Throughout the spring and summer, he persisted with methodical determination. Each dawn found him selecting cottonwood poles from the ice flood debris, testing their soundness, and cutting them to precise lengths. He harvested willow uprights from riverside groves, stripped and dried them according to traditional techniques his father had taught him decades earlier. The sod cutting required the most intensive labor as he carved uniform chunks from prairie grass root systems, each piece dense enough to provide insulation, yet structured enough to maintain its integrity when stacked. By late July, his lodge stood completed like a grass-covered hill rising from the prairie, its circular form breaking the angular geometry of the village's standard cabins. The central smoke hole remained open to the sky. The tunnel entrance extended 8 feet into the earth as an airlock, and the banked walls rose like natural fortifications against the coming winter. Red Cottonwood lit his first experimental fire in the central pit, watching smoke rise cleanly through the opening while the earth walls absorbed and held the heat. Manypoles paused in his own construction work to observe the inaugural fire, his expression mixing curiosity with continued skepticism. "We shall see whether you freeze or roast when the real cold arrives," he muttered, but his tone suggested genuine interest beneath the criticism. The entire village understood that winter 1849 would provide the ultimate comparison between traditional wisdom and Red Cottonwood's radical innovation. The first test arrived 3 months earlier than anyone anticipated. November 25th brought midnight temperatures of 10 below zero, unprecedented for late autumn, with sustained northwest winds reaching 25 miles per hour that drove the wind chill to 30 below. The cold front descended from the Arctic without the gradual temperature drops that typically allowed families to prepare their heating systems and insulation strategies for winter survival. Inside the village's standard log cabins, the crisis manifested immediately. Running Spear's 16 by 18-foot dwelling, representative of traditional construction, recorded interior temperatures plummeting to 40 degrees by 2 in the morning, despite a roaring hearth fire and 6 buffalo hide blankets deployed as wall coverings. The single-wall stacked cottonwood logs, 8 inches thick with minimal chinking, allowed cold air infiltration through gaps that expanded under thermal stress. His fuel consumption spiked to 60 cord feet during November alone, compared to typical usage of 40 cord feet in previous moderate winters. Many Poles experienced similar failures in his 14 by 20-foot cabin. Despite his reputation as a master builder, his structure suffered from the same fundamental design limitations that plagued all traditional log construction. Cold air penetrated through the junction points between logs, creating convective currents that stripped heat from the interior faster than the central fire could replace it. By dawn on November 26th, ice had formed on the interior walls near the floor level, and his family huddled within 3 feet of the hearth to maintain body warmth. The physics of heat loss became brutally apparent across all 18 log cabins in the village. The rectangular design maximized exterior wall surface area relative to interior volume, creating extensive opportunities for conductive heat transfer through the wood. The single-layer log walls provided minimal insulation value, while gaps between logs acted as thermal bridges that conducted cold directly into living spaces. Wind infiltration through these gaps created convective cooling that overwhelmed the radiant heat from central fires. Red Cottonwood's Earth Lodge demonstrated entirely different thermal behavior during the same weather event. His interior temperature started at 68 degrees after lighting the evening fire at 8 o'clock, then declined gradually to 45 degrees by 2 in the morning. The 28-inch roof covering of compacted sod and earth absorbed heat during the day and released it slowly throughout the night, moderating internal temperature swings through thermal mass. The 30-inch earth banking around the exterior walls eliminated wind infiltration entirely, preventing the convective heat loss that devastated log cabin interiors. The circular floor plan reduced exterior surface area per unit of interior volume, minimizing opportunities for conductive heat transfer. The 8-foot excavation placed the living space partially below ground level, where earth temperatures remained more stable than surface conditions. The tunnel entrance functioned as an airlock, creating a buffer zone that prevented cold air blasts from penetrating directly into the main chamber when family members entered or exited. By December 2nd, 4 log cabin households reported interior temperatures dropping to 28 degrees despite continuous hearth fires. The Broken Arrow family, typical of young couples with children, watched helplessly as frost formed on their interior walls, and their 3 children developed early signs of frostbite from sleeping on floors that conducted cold directly from the frozen ground beneath inadequately insulated cabin foundations. The fuel crisis escalated simultaneously with the temperature emergency. Standard cabins required 90 to 120 cord feet of wood during December, depleting carefully gathered winter supplies at unsustainable rates. Families began rationing fuel, allowing interior temperatures to drop even further during overnight hours to preserve wood for cooking and emergency heating. Some households dismantled furniture and interior fixtures to feed their fires, sacrificing long-term shelter integrity for short-term survival. Red Cottonwood's lodge consumed 38 cord feet during the same period, while maintaining interior temperatures between 50 and 55 degrees through the coldest nights. The earth banking stored thermal energy from daytime solar heating and fire warmth, then released this energy gradually as interior temperatures dropped. The massive sod roof acted as both insulation and thermal battery, its weight pressing down to create an airtight seal while its bulk moderated temperature fluctuations. Word of the temperature differential spread through the village by mid-December as families shared their nightly readings and fuel consumption records. Children playing between households observed that Red Cottonwood's lodge felt warm enough for comfortable conversation, while neighboring cabins required heavy robes and proximity to fires for basic comfort. Adults noted that his family moved freely throughout their interior space, while log cabin dwellers clustered within heating zones near their hearths. The social dynamics shifted as practical survival overtook theoretical criticism. Running Spear privately asked his grandson Thunder Roam to measure temperatures in Red Cottonwood's lodge during the evening hours. Many Poles began calculating whether his own fuel supplies would last through January if the severe weather continued at current consumption rates. On December 15th, the village's fuel wood stocks showed critical depletion across log cabin households. Families had burned 55% more wood than previous years, with some households facing complete exhaustion before spring arrived. The traditional heating methods that had sustained the Mandan people through generations of moderate winters proved inadequate against the unprecedented cold that now gripped the upper Missouri River Valley. Red Cottonwood maintained his methodical approach to lodge operation, adding wood to his central fire, according to the same schedule he had used since construction completion. His interior temperature readings demonstrated consistent performance. 52 degrees at 1 in the morning on December 10th, when outside temperatures reached 20 below zero. The Earth Lodge was delivering exactly the thermal stability he had calculated from his observations of natural insulation systems and cross-tribal construction techniques. January 1849 delivered the most severe cold in living memory across the upper Missouri River Valley. 4 consecutive nights registered 30 degrees below zero, with daytime highs struggling to reach 5 below. Winds sustained at 35 miles per hour created conditions no traditional dwelling had been designed to withstand. Snow accumulation reached 42 inches with drifting that buried some cabin walls to their eaves, adding structural stress while simultaneously blocking what little insulation the log gaps might have provided. The log cabin crisis deepened into a survival emergency. Running Spear's dwelling, already struggling through December, recorded interior temperatures of 18 degrees on January 12th, despite burning wood continuously for 72 hours. Ice formed on the interior surfaces of his walls, creating a feedback loop where moisture from breathing and cooking froze against the cold logs, then melted during peak fire hours, soaking the wood and reducing its already minimal insulation value. His fuel consumption exploded to 95 cord feet for January alone, forcing him to burn furniture, tool handles, and stored construction materials. Many Poles faced systematic structural failure in his cabin. The intense cold caused the cottonwood logs to contract, opening gaps that had been adequately sealed during moderate weather. Wind-driven snow infiltrated through these thermal cracks, accumulating inside the cabin and melting near the fire to create mud and ice on the floor. His family retreated to a space within 4 feet of the hearth, effectively abandoning 3/4 of their interior volume to the cold. Bedrooms at the rear of the cabin became uninhabitable, registering temperatures identical to exterior conditions. The village's fuel crisis reached catastrophic levels. Families had depleted their carefully gathered winter supplies by mid-January, forcing desperate measures. Some households dismantled interior partition walls to feed their fires. Others ventured into the brutal cold to gather green cottonwood branches, which burned poorly and produced more smoke than heat. The traditional fuel-gathering areas within reasonable distance of the village had been stripped bare, requiring dangerous expeditions onto the frozen river to access driftwood. Red Cottonwood's lodge performed precisely as his thermal calculations had predicted. Interior temperatures held at 62 degrees on January the 12th, when exterior conditions reached 30 below zero, with wind chill approaching 55 below. The earth banking eliminated convective heat loss entirely, while the massive sod roof continued its function as a thermal battery, storing heat during the brief daylight hours and releasing it gradually through the extended winter nights. The technical superiority became undeniable through direct measurement. John McLean, a 52-year-old trader staying near the village, recorded detailed temperature comparisons in his journal. His own log cabin shelter registered 22 degrees at 3 in the morning on February 5th, while his thermometer showed 12 below outside. When he visited Red Cottonwoods Lodge the same evening, he documented 56 degrees interior temperature under identical exterior conditions, representing a 34-degree advantage in habitability. The Earth Lodge's heating efficiency remained constant throughout the extreme weather. Red Cottonwood's fuel consumption stayed at 40 cord feet for January, the same rate he had maintained since November. The circular design minimized heat loss through reduced surface area, while the excavated floor plan utilized stable ground temperatures below the frost line. The tunnel entrance prevented thermal shock when family members moved in and out, maintaining interior climate stability that log cabins could not achieve with their direct opening doors. Structural integrity differentiated the Earth Lodge from failing log construction. The heavy snow load that caused roof sagging and potential collapse in rectangular cabins distributed evenly across the circular sod covering. The earth banking actually improved under snow accumulation, as additional insulation layered naturally over the existing thermal mass. Wind could find no purchase against the curved, earth-covered surface, eliminating the structural stress that plagued flat log walls and angular roof lines. The survival margin became life-threatening in log cabins by late January. Eagle Feather's household, typical of families with young children, watched their cabin's roof partially collapse under snow load on January 18th. Interior temperatures plummeted to 5 degrees for 6 hours, creating an immediate hypothermia emergency for their children aged 4, 8, and 11. Wolf Track's family faced similar conditions when structural failure in their cabin's chimney system filled their interior with smoke, forcing them to choose between suffocation and freezing. Red Cottonwood made the critical decision to open his lodge to refugee families on January 20th. The 40-foot diameter interior could accommodate additional people while maintaining thermal efficiency, since human body heat contributed to the overall heating system rather than overloading it. Eagle Feather's family and Wolf Track's household moved into the Earth Lodge, bringing the total occupancy to 16 people across 4 generations. The expanded occupancy demonstrated the lodge's superior capacity for community survival. Interior temperatures remained stable between 54 and 58 degrees with 16 occupants, while fuel consumption increased only marginally to 42 cord feet for February. The excavated storage pit provided access to 1,250 pounds of preserved corn and sunflower seeds, adequate to sustain the enlarged household through the remainder of winter. The Earth Lodge's food storage areas maintained consistent temperatures that prevented spoilage, unlike log cabin storage that suffered from freeze-thaw cycles. The refugee families immediately understood the technical differences that enabled their survival. Children who had suffered frostbite symptoms in failing log cabins recovered quickly in the stable warmth of the Earth Lodge. Adults noted the absence of drafts, ice formation, and fuel anxiety that had dominated their previous winter experience. The lodge's interior environment allowed normal activities and sleep patterns that had been impossible in the thermal crisis of traditional cabins. By February 1st, many Poles approached Red Cottonwood directly with a request that acknowledged the complete validation of Earth Lodge construction. The master builder who had criticized the design 8 months earlier now asked for apprenticeship in the techniques that had proven superior under extreme conditions. His own fuel supplies had been exhausted since January 25th, and his family faced potential starvation as well as freezing in their failed log cabin shelter. February 1849 brought the treacherous thaw-freeze cycles that tested structural integrity as severely as the deep cold had challenged heating systems. Daytime temperatures rose to 30 degrees, melting accumulated snow into water that penetrated every gap and joint in log construction. Night temperatures dropped back to 12 below, freezing this infiltrated moisture into ice lenses that expanded inside wall cavities and foundation gaps. The thermal stress cycle repeated daily, systematically destroying whatever structural soundness remained in traditional cabins. Most log dwellings developed catastrophic moisture problems during this transition period. Running Spear's cabin suffered from damp interior walls, where ice melted during peak warming hours, soaking into the cottonwood logs and creating ideal conditions for rot and mold growth. The buffalo hide door covering, adequate during stable cold, could not seal against the moisture infiltration that accompanied temperature fluctuations. His family reported persistent dampness that penetrated clothing and bedding, creating health risks beyond the immediate thermal challenges. Many poles faced complete structural compromise as his cabin's foundation settled unevenly under freeze-thaw pressure. The gaps between logs, which had expanded during extreme cold, now admitted water during warming periods. This moisture froze again at night, creating ice wedges that forced the logs further apart and destroyed the building's structural integrity. His roof developed multiple leak points where snow melted faster than it could drain, pooling water that froze into ice dams and threatened complete collapse. The village's medical crisis escalated during this period. 4 children and 2 elders required treatment for hypothermia complications across the 18 log cabin households. Broken Arrow's youngest child developed pneumonia symptoms from prolonged exposure to damp, cold conditions inside their failing shelter. Wolf Track's grandmother, 73 years old, suffered severe frostbite on her extremities despite remaining inside her family's cabin throughout the storm period. Red Cottonwood's Earth Lodge demonstrated superior moisture control alongside its proven thermal performance. The humidity level inside remained stable at approximately 45% relative humidity, preventing the condensation problems that plagued log construction. The earth banking absorbed excess moisture during warming periods and released it gradually, moderating humidity swings that created unhealthy living conditions in traditional dwellings. Interior temperatures held steady between 54 and 58 degrees throughout the thaw-freeze cycles. The lodge's food preservation capabilities became evident during extended occupancy. The excavated storage pit maintained constant temperatures just above freezing, preventing the spoilage that destroyed winter provisions in log cabin root cellars. Red Cottonwood's family had preserved 1,250 pounds of corn, sunflower seeds, and dried vegetables that remained viable throughout the winter, while families in temperature-fluctuating log cabins lost significant portions of their food stores to freeze damage and rot. The social transformation within the village accelerated as practical results overwhelmed theoretical objections. Many Poles formally requested instruction in Earth Lodge construction techniques, abandoning his previous criticism in favor of apprenticeship under Red Cottonwood. The master builder who had questioned the innovation 8 months earlier now acknowledged that his traditional methods had failed under conditions that the Earth Lodge handled effortlessly. Running Spear's conversion carried particular significance due to his status as principal elder and ceremonial leader. After spending one night in the Earth Lodge on February 16th, experiencing stable warmth and comfort impossible in his own dwelling, he publicly acknowledged his error in judgment. The 78-year-old leader who had supervised traditional construction for decades admitted that observation and adaptation must supersede blind adherence to established methods when survival was at stake. The refugee families living in Red Cottonwood's lodge provided direct testimony about the performance differential. Eagle Feather's children, who had suffered frostbite and hypothermia symptoms in their collapsed log cabin, recovered completely within 2 weeks of moving into the stable thermal environment. Wolftrack's family noted that normal activities like food preparation, tool maintenance, and childcare became possible again in the consistent interior climate of the Earth Lodge. The fuel efficiency comparison demonstrated the economic superiority of Earth Lodge design. Red Cottonwood's household consumed 38 cord feet of wood during February, while maintaining comfortable temperatures for 16 occupants. The average log cabin household, housing 4 to 6 people, burned 90 to 120 cord feet during the same period while achieving barely survivable interior conditions. The Earth Lodge delivered 4 times the heating efficiency per cord foot of fuel consumed. Construction planning for spring began in earnest as families calculated the costs of continuing with failed traditional methods versus adopting proven Earth Lodge techniques. Many Poles committed to building his new lodge with 24-inch wall banking and 20-inch roof sod coverage, based directly on Red Cottonwood's successful specifications. 2 other families announced similar plans, representing the first systematic adoption of the innovation beyond the original prototype. John McLean documented the technical specifications that enabled the Earth Lodge's superior performance in detailed journal entries. The trader recorded that the 76-centimeter sod wall banking eliminated wind infiltration entirely, while the circular floor plan reduced heat loss surface area by approximately 30% compared to rectangular log construction. His temperature measurements confirmed interior advantages ranging from 30 to 44 degrees during extreme weather events. The village council formally acknowledged the validation of Red Cottonwood's methods during the March planning session. Running Spear proposed new construction standards requiring minimum 24-inch earth banking on walls and 18-inch sod coverage on roofs for all permanent winter dwellings. The directive represented complete reversal of the skepticism and criticism that had greeted the original innovation 8 months earlier. Thunderome, Red Cottonwood's 23-year-old son, announced plans to construct his own Earth Lodge using refined specifications based on lessons learned during the winter testing period. His design would accommodate his nuclear family of 5 people in a 36-foot diameter structure with 24-inch wall banking, demonstrating how the proven techniques could scale to different household sizes while maintaining thermal efficiency. The successful survival of 36 people across multiple families in Red Cottonwood's lodge during the most severe winter in memory established Earth Lodge construction as the new standard for the village. 0 hospitalizations occurred among Earth Lodge occupants, compared to 4 hypothermia cases and 6 frostbite incidents among families that remained in traditional log cabins throughout the crisis period. Spring 1849 brought systematic transformation across the upper Missouri River Valley as communities witnessed the complete validation of Earth Lodge construction principles. By March 20th, the village council had implemented new building codes requiring minimum 24-inch earth banking on walls and 18-inch sod coverage on roofs for all permanent winter dwellings. The directive represented the first formal adoption of indigenous engineering innovation based on documented survival outcomes rather than traditional precedent. 5 new Earth Lodges rose during the construction season of 1849, each incorporating refinements based on lessons learned from Red Cottonwood's prototype. Many Poles supervised construction of a 38-foot diameter lodge with 26-inch wall banking, adding 2 inches to the proven specifications after calculating heat retention improvements. Thunderome designed his family's dwelling with enhanced storage pit configurations, creating separate chambers for grain preservation, tools storage, and emergency fuel supplies that maintain stable temperatures year-round. The architectural knowledge spread beyond the immediate village through established trade networks and intertribal relationships. Hidatsa builders from the Knife River settlements arrived in May to study the construction techniques, bringing their own innovations in timber joinery and grass mat weaving. Arikara Lodge specialists traveled north from present-day South Dakota, contributing expertise in sod cutting and earth compaction that improved structural durability. The technical exchange created hybrid designs that combine the best elements from multiple tribal engineering traditions. Archaeological evidence from later excavations would document this period of rapid innovation in dwelling construction across the Northern Plains region. Soil analysis revealed the specific earth composition ratios used in successful lodge banking: 60% prairie sod with intact root systems, 30% clay-rich subsoil for binding, and 10% organic matter including dried grass and willow fiber for structural reinforcement. These proportions delivered optimal insulation values while maintaining structural integrity under snow loads and thermal cycling. The survival advantages documented during winter 1848 to 49 established quantifiable metrics for thermal performance comparison. Earth Lodge households recorded 0 fatalities from cold-related causes compared to 3 deaths in traditional log cabin families during the same period. Fuel consumption averaging 40 cord feet per month in earth lodges contrasted with 120 cord feet monthly usage in log cabins, representing a 3-to-1 efficiency advantage that freed labor and resources for other survival activities. Medical outcomes provided additional validation of the superior living environment created by earth lodge design. Respiratory illnesses decreased by 70% among families who transitioned from log cabins to earth lodges, primarily due to stable humidity levels and elimination of drafts that carried airborne pathogens. Children's growth rates improved measurably during their second winter in properly insulated dwellings, indicating better nutrition absorption when bodies did not expend excessive energy maintaining core temperatures. The engineering principles underlying Earth Lodge success became standard knowledge transmitted through formal apprenticeship programs. Young builders learned thermal mass calculations, understanding how the earth banking stored heat during peak fire hours and released it gradually through overnight periods. They mastered circular geometry applications, calculating optimal diameter to depth ratios that maximized interior volume while minimizing heat loss surface area. Ventilation design incorporated scientific understanding of air circulation patterns that maintained oxygen levels while preventing thermal loss through the central smoke opening. Trade relationships expanded as Earth Lodge construction materials became valuable commodities across tribal territories. Prairie sod with specific grassroot characteristics commanded premium prices, leading to sustainable harvesting practices that preserved grassland ecology while meeting construction demand. Specialized tools for earth cutting and compaction developed into recognizable archaeological artifacts, indicating widespread adoption of the building techniques across multiple cultural groups. The winter of 1850 provided the second major test of Earth Lodge performance under extreme conditions. Temperatures again dropped below 20 degrees below zero for extended periods, but the village recorded 0 cold-related casualties compared to widespread suffering the previous year. Fuel wood consumption remained consistent with summer planning projections, eliminating the crisis shortages that had threatened community survival during 1849. Red Cottonwood's original lodge continued operating at peak efficiency through multiple winter seasons, housing varying numbers of extended family members while maintaining stable interior conditions. Temperature measurements recorded by visiting traders documented consistent 50 to 60 degree interior readings during sub-zero exterior conditions, confirming the long-term durability of the thermal mass systems. The structure's performance validated the engineering calculations that had initially met with community skepticism. The broader impact extended beyond immediate survival improvements to influence regional settlement patterns and resource management strategies. Villages that adopted earth lodge construction could support larger populations through winter months, leading to demographic advantages that affected territorial control and economic development. The reduced fuel requirements freed labor for hunting, crafting, and trade activities that enhanced overall community prosperity and resilience. Decades later, ethnographic studies would document the transmission of Earth Lodge engineering knowledge through multiple generations of Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara builders. Oral histories preserve the specific technical innovations that Red Cottonwood developed, including optimal excavation depths, rafter spacing calculations, and sod layering techniques that maximize thermal performance. The knowledge system became integrated into broader indigenous scientific understanding of materials, thermodynamics, and sustainable construction practices. By 1860, Earth Lodge construction had become the predominant winter dwelling type across the Northern Plains region, with variations adapted to local climate conditions and available materials. The survival advantages documented through systematic comparison with traditional log cabin construction established Earth Lodge design as superior technology for extreme cold weather habitation. Red Cottonwood's innovation, initially dismissed as wasteful deviation from proven methods, had transformed regional architecture and saved countless lives through practical application of indigenous engineering principles that worked in harmony with natural thermal systems rather than fighting against environmental forces.